Agatha Podgorski, you are the Director of Community Engagement at the Ontario Culinary Tourism Alliance. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the Fact Up podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
But for
I'm
those who,
excited.
yeah, I'm excited to have you because for those who don't know, what is the Culinary Tourism Alliance all about and what does your job entail?
Oof, a lot. I've been petitioning to change my job title to MacGyver for the last few years because
Right?
it feels a little like that's what I do. So we're a not-for-profit. We do a couple different things. We run programs to support industry both through skills development and marketing. But as a result of that, we've become this hub of information of where to eat and drink locally in the province. We started as a provincial organization and we've grown to an international organization at this point. We're teaching other destinations to do what we do and to celebrate local food through tourism and build rural economies through attracting food tourists, essentially.
That's got to be a massive accomplishment to be able to go from a very local level to an internationally recognized level where people are looking at you for guidance and support to kind of build their own backyard.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I've been with the organization 11 years now, and we've been around for 13. And the first year that we were in existence, we were essentially just a collective of destinations in the province that met periodically to talk about what the priorities should be. I came on as an intern out of culinary school, funny enough, and have watched this organization grow from me and our president CEO, Rebecca, to this huge global, I mean, huge, there's 13 of us,
Mhm.
to this
Pretty big.
global entity that's really doing cool things to use food as a tool of building community and telling stories and connecting people to each other.
This particular question kind of popped out to me when I was planning this podcast, and that is why food? What does food mean to you personally?
Oh God, because it's delicious. No,
Right? That's a great
there's
reason.
we make this joke, or I make this joke, I should say, when I teach, which is a big part of my job now. There's only one thing every tourist does at least 3 times a day, and if they're anything like me, they do it 5 or 6 times a day, and that's eat. Right? It's the
Right.
great connector. It's how people form lifelong memories. When you think about those great experiences in your life in travel, the ones that stick with you the most often involve food because they trigger your five senses. And when your five senses are triggered, memories last longer and they get inputted deeper into your brain. So definitely that, but also it's this intangible piece of cultural heritage that for a really long time wasn't being respected or written down, was passed on orally, which is sad but also magical in a way because it allowed for really authentic, meaningful connections between people when they traveled. And I think that's really special. I also think that every place, no matter what they feel they're like or where they feel they come from, has a food culture. We in Canada make these jokes all the time about how, like, oh, our food culture is just donuts and poutine. We don't have a food culture here. It's just other people's food culture. But that that ideal in and of itself, paired with all the communities that are here and all the different foodways that they've brought with them, with that quintessential Canadian lack of pride, has made for a very interesting food culture in and of itself.
I totally agree with you. I totally understand. And the fact that we haven't been promoting that as
Mhm.
much over the past, I don't know if we were hesitant. I don't know if it's this Canadian humility. I don't know if it's now, this, yeah, there is actually something really amazing here and we should celebrate it. But it took a while.
Exactly. And there's been amazing food here for a really long time. That's a mistake I was making for the last decade. I would say, oh, now we have really good food. Now our chefs have gotten better. Now blah blah blah. But it's more that now there's more awareness of the food, I should say.
Right.
And now our chefs are following global trends and on being recognized globally. But whether you're into kind of rural, authentic, home cooked stuff, roadside shacks, indigenous food based on wild foraged ingredients, or high end tasting menus with foam and tweezers, like there's a little bit of everything in Canada, and we grow almost everything, which is kind of insane. People forget about that we have this huge agricultural bounty. Save citrus and coffee, and sugar, but I guess we have some sugar because of sugar beets. We
Mhm.
have basically everything because we're so huge.
Word. Have we been taking it for granted all these years? Have we been overlooking how delicious our backyard is?
I definitely think we've been overlooking it for a really long time as a population. There's definitely segments out there that have been supporting local farmers and producers at whatever scale they can for a long time. But I think COVID, the silver lining of COVID is the interest in local food and the willingness to support your neighbors who are producing food has grown exponentially. People are looking for ways to support their communities. They're putting their dollars where they didn't before. When I talk to chefs, when I talk to grocers, when I talk to farmers, people, the anecdotes they tell me is that people used to look for the cheapest, always the cheapest, and now they're like, well, where can the biggest impact happen? If I buy this, how many families am I supporting? What community am I supporting? Is this made by my neighbor, right? And the fact is that's magical and beautiful and necessary, because if we don't think like that, because of COVID, unfortunately, a lot of our neighbors' businesses aren't going to survive. Mhm.
I mean, you're a super accomplished pro. Besides a degree at U of T, you went to George Brown College, and if anyone knows George Brown College in these parts in the Toronto area, especially, it's massive when it comes to the food scene.
Yeah.
You've helped introduce programs that promote food experiences and the people behind them, especially. What have been some of your biggest challenges in 2020, and what's inspired you the most?
Oh my goodness.
Loaded
Well,
question.
I'd say, yeah, loaded question.
Yeah.
Our biggest challenge is that all of the people that support us and make our efforts and business possible have been struggling, right? Which in turn makes us have to reimagine and pivot and find ways of supporting them. Otherwise, they would cease to exist. So that was definitely a challenge, but one we kind of embraced with open arms. Our recovery program has been chosen as the COVID recovery program for tourism in the province, which is exciting. We've got over 90 partners on board, which is unheard of. Partnership in tourism like this doesn't happen.
Hmm.
So that's been pretty magical. And I guess a success that comes out of a challenge. But honestly, on a personal level, I miss being out there talking to farmers, talking to restaurateurs, being on the ground, connecting with these communities, exploring the province. One of the reasons I'm in this field is because that drives me. Those relationships drive me, and I haven't been able to do that as much. I've been experimenting with like ordering online and getting my food from the farm delivered,
Hmm.
CSAs, stuff like that. But I miss seeing their face. I miss standing in fields of mud wearing boots, getting to know the names of pigs.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff I used to do.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, for an extrovert and for someone who likes to be outside, this is hell.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And
right?
for people who actually love people,
Yeah,
this is hell, right? But dining rooms are open, restaurants are closed, dining rooms are closed, restaurants are closing permanently. It's so unpredictable, and what's happening is super. It's just changing on a whim, seemingly day to day.
yeah.
How are you and others in your office dealing with those challenges of the changing food and restaurant scene and environment these days?
We're not. We're complaining loudly a lot. Um, we've started this campaign in our office where we do Takeout Wednesday,
Hmm.
started by Restaurants Canada. So all our staff orders lunch on Wednesday and it's covered by the company. So we all kind of get a free fancy meal and eat
Right.
it together on Zoom. We've been trying our best to support things in our local that are doing pickup and delivery, but it's hard. Most of us, I'd say 60% of us live in downtown Toronto in tiny apartments, and we do that because of the access to food and culture, and that's been missing. So definitely been struggling with that. I mean, we're trying to have authentic, meaningful conversations with the people who own those businesses to figure out what they need. We've been doing a lot of work lobbying with tourism to make sure that restaurants are included in the conversation and are thought about in that conversation. But I won't lie to you, it's been hard, and this is a really easy time for someone who has committed their life to this industry to walk away. And the thing I'm most confused about, worried about, anxious about, also maybe excited about, is that all of those legacy people that have been doing this for 30, 40 years are going to have to give up their spaces because of financial reasons or staffing reasons. And then all those spaces are going to go up for grabs, and new restaurateurs are going to be able to access them probably at lower prices,
Hmm.
which is a weird thing to think about. Like, I'm worried about that because I'm worried the big chains and the places without a soul are going to replace them. But maybe it'll be a door for young restaurateurs to enter the industry. I don't know. I think about that a lot. Like, what does it look like when, Big Daddy restaurateur who trained everybody has to walk away, but then his Sue suddenly can enter the market at a lower price point.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
could be interesting. It could be terrible.
yeah.
I hope my favorites stay. They've been pretty innovative. A lot of the restaurants I frequent are pivoting in cool ways. They're doing experiences. They've done patios. They've done pickup meals. A lot of them have turned into bodegas where you can kind of shop homemade products
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. I mean, I've been hosting two food tours in Greektown in Toronto for 4 years.
okay.
And I grew up in Scarborough, and Greektown has always been that hub, right? So back in the 80s, it was
Mhm.
like, you couldn't find Greek oregano at Food No Frills or whatever, big restaurant
Mhm.
chain. So Greektown was always that hub for food.
Yeah.
And Greeks are huge on food, right? We feed you, and if you don't eat enough, we'll make you feel guilty for not eating enough. That's just in our soul. But over the course of 20, 25, 30 years, especially over the past now year, those little mom and pop bakeries along Danforth Avenue are closing, and now you've seen the likes of Burgers Priest come in, Mary Brown's come in, and there's nothing wrong with those places. It's great, but you talked about, use that word soul, and soul is huge for me. Where the soul of the community, those people behind the experience that they would provide through food
Hmm.
and through conversation, no matter if you were Greek or not. And it's the same in
Yeah.
Little Italy and Little Portugal. I find like that soul is disappearing, and it's similar to homes, right? That's a
Yeah.
house, but a family will make it a home. That might be a bakery, but the people behind it will make it, soul food.
Hmm.
And we'll keep that conversation with you and remember your kids' names and see your kids grow up. And so the soul of the neighborhoods, I feel, are changing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the case pre-COVID, though. When you look at these kind of neighborhoods that are themed around communities of certain populations and certain types of people, they've been changing for decades, and
Hmm.
they've been moving around the province. I mean, I live in Kensington Market,
Hmm.
and it's been a Jewish neighborhood, it's been a Chinese neighborhood, it's been a Mexican neighborhood. Now it's like heavily Jamaican and island, and
Hmm.
that's been happening before COVID. COVID might shift it, might change it, might make it happen faster. But I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with populations moving places. That
Not at
that
all.
hub is going to pop up somewhere else. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of time and where it happens. It's I think it's a unique thing for Toronto and Ontario in general, because we have so many immigrants that kind of cluster together as they settle in certain places. These things pop up, right? And these hyper specific, like, it's almost like there's a community of, I'm Polish, so there's a community of Poles, but specifically from the mountains in this part of
Right.
Mississauga, and like they've all clustered together. It's not just
Right.
Polish people; it's specifically Tatar people,
Right.
and that's always happened. And I think that's okay. I think it's just it's the way the world goes, right? It's the way cities change and towns change. I just hope that there will still be space for food to be an active contributor to those communities through business, right?
Right.
Not just through homes.
It's a blessing and a curse, right? It's the
Yeah.
beauty about living in a city. There's always something going on, and there's always something
It's
changing,
it changes all the time.
right? You've had a big hand in creating Feast On. What's Feast On all about, and the benefits that it provides restaurants, and the benefits that it provides, everyday diners? First of all, what's it all about, and then the rest of the questions.
You like long-winded answers. I was
Yeah,
hoping for a yes or no speed round
that's
here,
coming.
Jim.
That's coming.
Uh,
That's coming.
definitely hitting me with the hard ones. So, Feast On is a certification program for restaurants. It was built as a system of resources for people in the restaurant industry, to source more local food, but also be celebrated for sourcing, already doing the work to source local food. So we look at their books, we look at how much money they spend on local food, and if they meet a certain threshold, that's 25% food, 25% alcohol, they get certified.
Mm.
On the consumer end of this piece, this education piece, this networking piece, is a list of 200 restaurants in the province who are committed to working with local farmers. So if that's something you believe in, and it should be something you believe in, you as a diner have this resource to see who's actually fighting the good fight. A lot of the time, over the last decade anyway, when people use the word local on menus, when they said, this is from farm XYZ, it was a marketing tactic. It was a tool to get people in the door, because people started realizing that that was something people were looking for. But they weren't necessarily doing the work. We were getting calls from farmers who were like, hey, my cheese is on this guy's menu, but they haven't bought from me in 7 years. So either that's real old cheese,
Wow.
or they're lying. So this program was created as a way of assuring people are doing what they said they're doing, and also to provide a resource for access to that kind of knowledge.
Right. I'm amazed that people would have the balls to do that and feel like they won't get caught in this day and
It's
age.
it's kind of amazing
Wow.
when I teach storytelling workshops. One of the first things I have to tell people is like, don't lie. Marketing 101.
Don't
Don't
lie.
lie.
Right.
Remember that super easy thing you were taught in elementary school? Still true. People will find out. And in the day of the internet,
Wow.
it's a big deal, right?
Wow. Well, here's another loaded question. What have your travels around the world taught you about the importance of food sourcing and food sustainability?
Yeah, a lot. I found that communities that focus on local and celebrate their producers are more resilient. But I've also found that a lot of the world doesn't respect the process and doesn't value the process. I visited communities where farmers are in poverty, and that's the expectation. But I've also visited communities where farmers are like rock stars. It's
Hmm.
like, this guy raises the best sheep. They're
Right.
like the tastiest, but also the fluffiest, but
Right.
also the cutest. So it depends on the place. But the ones that celebrate kind of what's unique to them and what's unique for them, have had the most interesting communities and menus and places. I went to New Zealand a few years ago, which I thought would be like Canada, like
Hmm.
Canada, but with some island stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
But their connection to the ocean and the way that they celebrate the tiniest differences, like they have these oysters that are, they're oysters. Like, oysters are oysters, right?
Hmm.
But they
Hmm.
have these stripes on their shell, and they're like a little deeper, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And the whole country is obsessed with these oysters. All they talk about is how much better these oysters are than everybody else's oysters, and how different they are, and how you can only get these here. And at first I was like, okay, they're oysters. But by the end of it, I was like, wow, these are the best oysters. I've
Right.
never had an oyster like this. This is amazing.
Right.
So that was pretty cool to see. I think about mustard a lot
Hmm.
when I get asked this question, because Canada grows like 90% of the world's mustard or something like that. Like,
Hmm.
it's a staggering percentage. Like, stumble upon it. It
Hmm.
gets shipped to France and turned into fancy mustard, and then shipped back here for us to buy as French mustard. And there's a disconnect there where, like, why aren't we celebrating that here? um there are mustard producers here, obviously, and they're amazing and they're great, but I think that disconnect definitely feeds into our inability to celebrate it, because the processed product is usually what we eat and consume. And
Hmm.
so, just essentially, this is long-winded and like weirdly tangential, but
No,
like,
it's all good.
when we ship our raw products out to get processed by somebody else and then ship them back here, that disconnect happens, right? People often miss that connection
Hmm.
back to where it came from. And you're seeing more and more artisan producers pop up that are doing that I think are really going to contribute to our food scene here. I think there's also a weird hangover left over from the 80s and early 90s, where exotic and far away was like the thing, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
oh my God, this is from so far away. It must be better than what I have here because it's from far away. And we've definitely been working to get over that. It's definitely true in our wine industry. Like, we need to celebrate our winemakers more. We do amazing things here. But for some people, for some reason, you say, "Oh, Ontario wine," and they're like, "Oh, Ontario wine." And I'm like, "Yeah, Pinot, Chardonnay, sparkling. Have you tried our bubbles? They are off the hook.
And I always like to ask the question, has COVID made the staycation cool again? But I think a lot of people have overlooked the fact that COVID has actually reignited the interest in local food,
Yeah,
right? Because
right?
you're right, bubbles, man,
We do
bubbles.
amazing bubbles.
Oh, there's so much. And then when you post a photo, like I'll post a photo of a road trip in Oxford County or
Cheese
around.
capital of Ontario.
Right. And it's like people don't know that. And you go to Woodstock and it's like
Mhm.
the dairy capital. People don't know that. It's like, where is that? Oh, it's non-GMO. Oh, where is that? It's just down the road, man. All you have to do is pick a
Mhm.
direction and you'll find it. That's all you
Right?
have to do.
It's
Right.
There's so much cool stuff. And I know you're leading into what's my favorite place in Ontario. I can feel it, and I
No,
hate that question.
no, I'm not asking you that. I'm not asking you that. What
Love
I'm going
it.
to ask you though
Perfect.
is because we're talking about a lot of challenges, let's look ahead to kind of what we can look forward to on a positive note in 2021 as far as like culinary experiences go in the province of Ontario.
Yeah, so I think definitely we're going in a direction where small, intimate experiences are going to be the norm. They're going to be less accessible, read more expensive.
Hmm.
Obviously, because small experiences are more expensive to put on.
Hmm.
But I'm pretty excited about that. To tell you the truth, I don't go to food festivals. I organize food festivals, but I don't go because I just get really tired of the lineups and the crowds.
Hmm.
So that shift towards intimate, small, connected to the land, outdoor. I'm really excited about, and I think that's definitely going to happen. I think we're going to start really getting creative in ways of experiencing winter. I'm seeing more winter experiences coming, definitely, like outdoor après ski,
Hmm. Hmm.
snowshoe, cider, by the fire kind of thing. That stuff, I'm excited for that to happen. We're going to need to be resilient and find ways of using that other half of the year that events weren't happening in before. I definitely see more capacity for our farmers. The only people that have consistently told me they're doing better during COVID are the farmers. There's more trucks on the ground. There's more delivery services. There's more solutions in the tech space for farmers who didn't have a distribution network. So I think access is a big thing that's going to happen in 2021. I'm excited about, and I think people are just. I think ultimately, I hope people are going to slow down a little and learn to appreciate our wild, natural spaces through food. Um, I spent most of the summer up in Muskoka at a off-grid cabin, as you
Hmm.
know, Jim.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And it kind of taught me to disconnect and to take a moment and enjoy the glass of wine and really kind of think about what I'm doing. And I think that's going to lead to a new kind of respect and reverence in the food scene.
Rapid fire with Agatha Podgorski. You ready? 10 questions. There's nothing rapid about this. Take your time. Okay.
Let's go. Bring it on. Bring it
Prefer
on.
preferred comfort food: 6 pack of butter tarts or a 6 pack of local cider.
Butter tarts, hands down.
Ah,
I'm the
right.
queen.
Last meal on earth. What is it?
Oh, grilled cheese sandwich.
Ooh, really? Anyone in particular from a restaurant or family or what? Mom,
Uh,
sister?
my husband makes a mean grilled cheese. It would be made with mountain oak Gouda from Oxford County, which we call crack cheese here in my house,
Yeah.
and blackbird bread from
Oh yeah.
Kensington Market.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
Yeah,
You've come out of the bar, you're starving. What are you jonesing for?
chip truck fries
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice.
or shawarma.
Okay,
Thai.
yeah, yeah. Favorite meal when you were a kid?
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Nothing's
I hated
embarrassing.
food as a child, and my grandpa, who used to take care of me, used to heat up Mr. Noodle noodles and
Oh
put butter in
yeah.
them, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
Mr. Noodles with butter.
Butter. Really?
Not gourmet or particularly like no powder, right? Just butter and Mr. Noodle noodles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why is that
I was
embarrassing?
not.
It's not
This
embarrassing.
is new. This food love is like in the last 20 years, not as a
Right.
child.
Right. Food you couldn't stand as a child but can't get enough now as an adult.
Meat.
Really, meat. Yeah, eh?
Meats, yeah, it was really hard for me to eat meat. I also could never have cheese and mayonnaise touching as a child. Thought
Okay.
that was like super disgusting, and I'm over that now.
Right. That's good. Because they go really nicely together. If you had to pick one, would you rather go on the apple pie trail along Georgian Bay or wine hopping in Prince Edward County?
unfair. I work with both those regions and they're both awesome. But okay, I am going to say, listen, I'm going to say apple pie trail because asterisk, there's also wine there, so I can hit both.
Right. Very wise. Very diplomatic of you.
There you go.
Food road trip to Ottawa or food road trip to Thunder Bay?
You're the worst. I work with both those places too.
I know. I've done my research.
Okay, so that's a hard one because Thunder Bay is home of my favorite hot sauce in the whole province, Heartbeat Hot Sauce, and their beer scene is off the hook, and I am a little bit of a beer head. But feeding on a question you asked me earlier, Ottawa is the shawarma capital of Ontario,
That's
and
right.
it is off the hook. So I'm going to say Ottawa. Sorry, Thunder Bay. I still love you.
I hear you, man. I ask tough questions for a reason. I'm known for that. Is there a place in the world that speaks to you on a culinary level?
It changes regularly. The next place I want to go is Italy, but the place I'm obsessed with is Mexico, Central Mexico. Not so much that kind of like Tulum fish taco thing, more of the like mole kind of meats, tortillas,
Elotes.
Weird funguses, hot sauces, salsa kind of thing.
Yeah. The thrill about Mexico is you can get an elote with the corn with the mayo and the thing, and then you can go around the corner and get 4 tacos for like I can't.
$2.
I can't. 5 snacks you always bring with you on a road trip.
So those are usually dictated by my husband because he makes very few choices in our life. So I will I let him have that one. Peanut butter filled pretzels.
Okay.
Beef jerky / pepperettes.
Okay.
Sour keys for me.
Okay, yeah.
For sure. Those Schneider's broken up pretzel bits with the buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, those. And fruit, which is the one thing I add to the pile.
Nice. That's 5. That's the 5th one.
Yeah.
Last question. Where do you feel your soul lives?
Poland.
Polska.
Yeah, I haven't been back since I studied in Eastern Europe like 12 years ago, but that's also a loaded question because there's been so much turmoil in that region and I feel so connected to it that I worry about it a lot. And I don't have a huge family, so I feel really connected to the community. But yeah, Poland.
Yeah.
Poland.
It's where your innards melt every time you go.
Yeah.
Agatha Podgorski, thank you so much for taking the time today to join me on the Fact Up podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I was looking forward to this for a while, and I commend your efforts, your continuing challenging efforts to keep the spirit of local alive. And I wish you and your family nothing but health and safety down the road. And hopefully we can catch up maybe in person and have that conversation with 2 beer heads in person.
Love it. Perfect. Right. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Thank you so much and take care.
Bye.
Hey guys, if you love what you just watched, I would love for you to subscribe to Travel Mammal, the channel, by clicking on this beautiful circular icon right over here. If you want to watch full podcast episodes and updates on every travel and food video that I publish, go ahead and choose from this lovely selection from over here. Thanks for watching.